Welcome, dear friends, to this live stream opportunity to study the teachings of the Buddha. Welcome to Nick, Matthias, and those of you who've already joined. And welcome to everyone who's watching this later on. I'd like to begin by paying homage to our teacher, the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namassami. So again, thank you for joining this session. I'm offering a sutta today, and then we can hopefully have some reflections on that sutta and maybe some questions around this teaching. So today's sutta is from Samyutta Nikaya. I'll just post it here. It's 2254. So it's from the third book of Samyutta Nikaya, the book on the aggregates. And this particular sutta is called Seeds, number 54, 2254. Bija in Pali. So I think what I'd like to do is to read bit by bit, and just let's see where this teaching takes us. At Savatthi, the Buddha was speaking to the monks. He said, there are these 5 kinds of seeds. What 5? There are root seeds, stem seeds, joint seeds, cutting seeds, and germ seeds as the 5th. If these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, if they're fertile, securely planted, but there is no earth and there's no water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase, and expansion? So the Buddha is asking the monks this simple question. Would the seeds be able to grow, even healthy, good seeds, without any earth, without any water? And they reply, no, Venerable Sir. And the Buddha asked a second question. If these 5 kinds of seeds are broken, spoiled, if they're damaged by wind and sun, if they're unfertile, not securely planted, but there is earth and water, would these seeds come to growth, increase, and expansion? No, Venerable Sir. The earth is present, the water is present, the nutriment that's needed for the seeds to grow, but the seeds themselves are damaged. They're incapable of growth. And then the Buddha asks the third question. If these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, if the seeds are fertile, securely planted, and there is earth and there is water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, expansion, and increase? Yes, Venerable Sir, replied the monks. So here we have the conducive conditions for growth. The seeds are healthy, the earth is present, and there is water to nourish them. And this, of course, is a simile from the Buddha. So he goes on to say, consciousness while standing might stand engaged with form. Excuse me, I just missed a bit out. The Buddha begins by saying, the 4 stations of consciousness should be seen as like the earth element. The 4 stations of consciousness in this simile, like the earth element. The 4 stations of consciousness are the 4 other khandhas, the 4 other components of our experience. So, consciousness resting on form or feelings, resting on perception, or resting on mental formations, sankhara, thought formations. These are the earth for consciousness. So these 4 stations of consciousness, body, feelings, perceptions, and mental formations, in this simile, they are the earth, like the earth. The Buddha goes on, delight and lust should be seen as like the water element. Craving, wanting, not wanting is like the water, the sprinkling of the water to nourish the seeds in this simile. And finally, consciousness, together with its nutriment, should be seen as like the 5 kinds of seeds. So consciousness is the seed with its nutriment, past karma, its nutriment of contact, its nutriment of consciousness itself. This is the seed, and the seed is planted in the body, feelings, perceptions, and mental formations. This is the earth in which the seed is planted. And in order to grow, in order to flourish, there's also the requirement for water. And this water is delight, lust, wanting, craving. So we get the picture. Where is this taking us? Let's read on. So the Buddha goes on, consciousness, while standing, might stand engaged with form, based upon form, established upon form, with a sprinkling of delight, the water of delight. It might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Or consciousness while standing upon feeling, or engaged with perceptions, or engaged with volitional formations, sankhara, mental formations. With any of these, in this simile, earth aspects, and with the sprinkling of the water of delight, so consciousness may come to growth, increase, and expansion. So here we have a very beautiful simile, which actually thoroughly, completely describes our situation. I love the beautiful Dharma that kind of cuts to the heart of the matter. This is the situation. This is where we are. This is how it is. So here's the simile. We're like a seed planted in the earth, sprinkled with water, that grows. Or if we're able to consider different possibilities, there is a seed that is planted in the earth and doesn't necessarily have to continue to multiply, grow, and expand. So in this simile, we're born, we've come into being. Why? Because of consciousness, because of momentum, because of a push, a drive to be, to exist. This consciousness comes into being, life after life. And so we take birth, and so we find ourselves as conscious beings, living in the earth that is this body with its feelings, this mind with its perceptions, and with its thoughts, with its concepts, with its conceivings. And, we start to recognize sooner or later that this is a situation that is not leading to happiness. It's not conducing towards well-being. So we're born, we have this trajectory through life. Birth can seem quite positive, happy, uplifting, celebratory, and that's fine. But what the actual trajectory of this birth, this life is a trajectory towards aging, sickness, and death. And to deny this or to turn away from this is to neglect the possibility, the opportunity, really, to wake up to this reality. To open to this reality is to begin to appreciate that there is another way forward. There is a happiness that lies beyond these 5 khandhas, that lies beyond the planting of seeds in the earth and the increasing growth, multiplication of essentially of suffering. So here's the simile, and we can consider it together. What do we have, where we're at, and what the possibilities are for future growth? When the seed of consciousness is planted in the body and it's sprinkled by the water of delight, then we are creating the conditions for more experience of body, for further cultivation of birth and rebirth. When the seed of consciousness is planted in feeling, we're feeling something pleasant, something painful, or something neutral. If we sprinkle that feeling with the water of delight or the water of aversion, the same thing, really, the same slightly different flavor, same watering, same problem. If we're nourishing feeling with delight or aversion, then we're creating the conditions for further consciousness of feeling, for further rebirth, further existence in samsara, which is further existence of suffering. So to water the seed of perceptions with delight, delighting in our perceptions or turning away from and having aversion towards them, we're creating the conditions for more of the same. There's the repetitive nature here, there's the circular nature, the rolling wheel of samsara, and we're just giving it another little push and propelling it a little bit quicker in the direction of further becoming, direction of dukkha, of suffering. And again, in this simile, when the seed of is planted, consciousness imbues mental formations, thinking, conceptualization, the mental realm, the creative realm of thought. When we're planting that seed and we're sprinkling the seed with the delight in thinking or hatred for thinking, reactivity towards this natural process, this karmic unfolding, when we're adding in a relationship of liking or disliking to thinking, then again, increase, papancha, growth, proliferation occurs. And all of this is to be seen, to be witnessed, And it's not to make it wrong, but it's to make it visible to us, to make it something that we can appreciate when we see how, when we react to reality, the natural unfolding of Dhammas, when we relate to them in a way of wanting more, delighting in, reveling in the experience, or turning away from and pushing away, or having aversion towards whatever experience it may be, then we are creating the conditions for multiplication. The same again. Habits are nothing but an endless cycle of repetition. So when we invest in habits, we invest in creating more of any of our experiences, or trying to kill them, get rid of them, expel them, then we are rolling on in samsara and creating more and more suffering. So, okay, that's all very somber and quite fearful, really, to consider. Let me read on. If the Buddha was just telling us there is dukkha, then it would be very difficult to receive these teachings. But fortunately, the great teacher is teaching us simply because he has seen the way out of suffering. So there is, I won't say hope, but there is a direction. There is a guidance that always comes in with these teachings. First, the Buddha's telling it like it is. This is the situation that we're in. And then he provides us with the way in which we can relate to this situation skillfully, the way in which we can actually take this opportunity. There is consciousness here. There is a body. Feelings are here. Perceptions and thoughts. How to utilize, how to make the best of this situation and turn it toward liberation. So let me read on from the sutta. The Buddha goes on, if someone might say, apart from form, apart from feeling, apart from perceptions, apart from mental formations, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth, its growth, increase and expansion. That is impossible. So here the Buddha's pointing out that we've come into being, we're conscious beings. This consciousness could not manifest without the other four khandhas. So there is this relationship, there is body, feelings, thoughts and perceptions, and this is the ground, this is the earth on which consciousness rests and also takes growth, flourishes, endlessly becomes. So without body, without feelings, perceptions and mental formations, there can be no manifestation of consciousness. And this is really the nama rupa. This is the name and form. This is the, in this case, human life that we're experiencing. Rebirth happens through consciousness entering into or connecting with form. To be conceived, one has to have a mother, a father, and then the consciousness that is seeking rebirth. Then conception can happen. How does conception happen? It happens through taking form, through material form manifesting with its feelings, and then along with the mental components of perception and formations. So here the Buddha is simply spelling out, this is the situation. This is the way in which consciousness takes rebirth again and again in different forms. And the Buddha goes on, And here is the here is the guidance coming. Here is the sort of sense of, well, what to do with this situation, how to work with this. If we're being told that consciousness repeats itself and continually flourishes and grows through hearing, feeling, body, perception, taking place, and through thinking and cognizing, and the growth happens through desire and aversion, and it leads to more suffering. This is really quite a bleak simile, quite a bleak picture for us to really take in. But it's helpful to really take it in, because it gives us the sense of that, well, okay, there must be some solution, there must be some way to work with this. And so a sense of perhaps a little urgency, a sense of focusing on the reality here, opening to the Dharma, can take place when we're given this picture, this simile, to give us a picture of the reality of our situation, of our predicament, you could say. So then the Buddha goes on to say, all right, that is the case. And then, if one has abandoned lust for the form element, has abandoned, with the abandoning of lust for the form element, the basis is cut off, the earth is cut away from the seed, there is no support for the establishment of consciousness. And in the same way, if we've abandoned lust for feeling, if we've abandoned desire for perceptions, if we're no longer craving volitional formations, thought formations, if we're no longer sprinkling these experiences of body, feelings, perceptions, and thinking, if we're no longer sprinkling them with desire, the water of desire, if we're no longer reacting to them with aversion, pouring on the water of aversion, then this consciousness has no opportunity to expand and increase and repeat and continue endlessly. When that consciousness is unestablished, the seed is not growing, not coming to growth, non-generative, it is liberated. So here we have the purpose of this teaching, the point of this simile, the way to really relate to this understanding. When we're able to consider body, consider feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness itself by stopping, looking within, and beginning to open to the reality of the watering that's been going on for so long, watering the seed of consciousness. The seed of consciousness that's planted in the ground here, the ground of this body and mind. Watering consciousness with delight, with hatred, with wanting and not wanting. For as long as we've been doing this, we can recognize through insight that it doesn't have to continue. We don't have to blindly continue to suffer, continue to create more and more dukkha for ourselves. There is the opportunity to stop. And it's such an incredible opening that can then happen for us to see how desire is optional. Hatred is optional. We can feel the upsurge of desire in relation to pleasant feeling, pleasant bodily experience, some pleasant perception, some beautiful sight, smell, taste, or touch, some very enticing train of thoughts. We can see how, when we're meditating, when we're practicing for liberation, when we're aware of our experience, we're developing sati, we're developing the stillness, the samadhi that enables us to look at the situation. Then we can start to see how delight is a danger for us. When there's pleasant experience, we can just be very conscious of the pleasant feeling, the pleasant perception, the pleasant thought, and just observe how it arises, how it lasts for some time, and then it passes away. And we get to notice, don't we, in our practice, that if we do delight in pleasant experience, when it arises, that's very great, that's very lovely. When it lasts, that's very wonderful. And then there's a little hint of kind of anxiety that can creep in because we know what's going to happen. And then most often, quickly, but sometimes over a period of time, but surely, inevitably, that pleasant feeling will pass away. That pleasant experience will come to an end. And then if we've sprinkled it with the water of delight, we'll then find ourselves sprinkling its cessation with the water of aversion, of not wanting. I don't want this to end. And as we pay attention to the sprinkling of water that's happening, nourishing the seed of consciousness, nourishing rebirth, as we pay attention to this process, we become very disillusioned. I'm sure you can relate to this. It's the push and pull. It's the roller coaster of life, the ups and downs. It becomes very tiresome. And we can start to recognize that, to step away from wanting, to step away from not wanting, desire and aversion, to see them for the dangerous imposters, dupes that they are. Then we can begin to liberate the mind. We can begin to experience some peace. So we can get very good at observing our experience, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, however we label it, however we feel it. We can begin to relate to all of our experience with equanimity. Yes, this too will pass. Yes, there is pleasant experience happening, but of course it will change. Yes, there is unpleasant feeling here, but of course it's going to not last. Just stay steady. And so slowly but surely we can begin to see this like a window opening for us, an opportunity for peace and equanimity, and a really true happiness, the happiness that comes from not relying on the earth that we find ourselves upon, the earth of the body, feelings, mental formations, perceptions, and consciousness itself. This is not our refuge. This is not our safety. This is not our source of happiness for us. It may be a source of temporary happiness, but it's so fleeting, so ephemeral. And so, friends, this is actually a very, positive and joyful teaching. The teaching again and again, just as in so many ways, the Buddha is inviting us to let go, let go, let go of the sprinkling of water, let go of delight, let go of aversion, let go of the ground, this earth, let go of this body, of feelings, perceptions, and mental formations, and let go of the seed of consciousness. Let go of its propagation. Let go of its generation, of its proliferation, of its growth. It is what it is. We are alive. We have the experience of these 5 khandhas, body, mind, but we don't have to continually recreate more of the same. We can actually beautifully and joyfully and peacefully observe. And as we observe our experience, we can see how the karma literally arises and passes away in front of our wise, virtuous gaze. And we are liberating from this situation that we find ourselves in. We're freeing the heart from suffering. How beautiful, how positive, how sublime this Dhamma. So just to conclude this sutta, the Buddha goes on to say, so when consciousness is not established, not coming to growth, not generating further consciousness, it is liberated. By being liberated, it is steady. By being steady, it is content. By being content, one is not agitated. There is no agitation here. Being unagitated, one personally attains Nibbana. Nibbana, the cool, the peaceful, the unreactive, the unconditioned, that which is beyond all of these conditions that we've been discussing. One understands destroyed is birth. Destroyed is birth. We can do this. We can appreciate this here and now. Here and now. Birth can be destroyed. What takes birth? Wanting, desire. Ignorance takes birth. Through insight, we can let go of wanting, let go of hating, let go of the pushing and pulling against reality, and just allow things to be as they are. And there, birth is destroyed. Just stop. And there, birth is destroyed. One understands destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. The good life has been lived. We have used this life for its true purpose. Its true potential has been fulfilled. Its true opportunity, the opportunity that we can say birth presents, has been fulfilled. What has to be done, friends, has been done. The letting go. There is no more for this state of being. And so there is this incredible teaching here to point us to Nibbana. The Buddha has done this in so many ways. This is simply one of so many sublime teachings that are inviting us to see clearly the situation that we're in, see that it is not perfect, see that it is flawed, fundamentally flawed. See how there's nothing here that we can hold on to and make it mine or make it good or make it permanent. There's nothing we can consider as a refuge here in this experience of mind and body, this world around us. There is, however, the opportunity to investigate the situation and to see how, again and again, we're experiencing feelings, body, perceptions, we're experiencing thinking, we're experiencing consciousness, and we can observe that with impartiality, with dispassion, with an attitude of letting go, letting it be, leaving it alone. And then if we observe any desire or aversion arising, we can let those go, leave them aside. Simply observe them, observe craving as it arises, feel the uncomfortable nature of it, feel the pain of hatred, and see how they arise. And if we're not reacting further, we're not adding anything into the mix, they pass away. They fade away. Everything, friends, that we can experience, if we observe wisely, will fade away, will pass away, will come to cessation. And in this cessation, there is peace. There is contentment. There is steadiness. There is safety. There is true understanding. And all of this process is pointing us to Nibbana, to complete freedom from suffering. The point will come where there's simply no more suffering to experience. And that point will come even in our lifetime. And then beyond that, the point will come when these khandhas, this body and mind, will come to their natural conclusion, will run out of any kind of fuel, and the body, mind will also subside. This is not something to fear. This is not something to shy away from. This is something to embrace. This is something to understand. This path of practice, so beautifully described right here for us by the Buddha in this beautiful teaching. Ewan. So friends, we have a little time. I think I'd like to actually, before we go into questions, follow dear Bhante Sadato's good example, and we'll celebrate this sutta, this teaching, with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at the chat now. Thanks again, everyone, for joining this teaching session live. Hello again to Nick and Matthias, Michael, Kim, Jayanta, Ian, Punya Chitta, Yankee Apple, Buddhist Insight, Sadhu, Empty Cloud, Rebecca, Bhumika, Sud, Richard, Andy, Christopher, Bawani, Sud. Thank you all for being here. And we have a few questions here. Or comments, reflections, also so welcome. It's so good to share on the Dharma together. Christopher, thank you. Okay, Christopher says, there is no present and no future in life as we live. Our life is only the past. Try catching this moment, but it has already gone into the past, and so with the next moment, ever fleeting and never staying. Any future idea in our mind is coming from our existing thoughts, which is the past, a complete past projection. Mind is made of thoughts and tendencies, all 100% past. Thoughts can never be in the present for the simple reason that they always belong to the past. Only awareness. Just see if there's any more here. Okay, that's it. Only awareness. Thank you so much, Christopher. That's beautiful. That's a really beautiful reflection. And I think that's something we can all contemplate and see how true that is for you. It's so true, isn't it, that the present moment is not something we can ever capture. There's nothing to hold on to there. It's fleeting, it's moving, everything's changing constantly and quickly. And so indeed, the present is entirely elusive. there's a very helpful way of practicing with this, which is to try to meet the present moment in our practice. This is a very good way to sharpen the awareness, to really wake us up to the experience, because the present is elusive. In the Chan tradition, they describe this as like trying to climb the glass mountain. We can't ever get to the top. It's slippery. It's impossible to reach the present moment, but it's very good to try, Christopher, isn't it? It's very good to aim for that, because it takes us to this experience right now and keeps us on track, keeps us aware of the reality right now. And I agree with you that everything really that's experienced here is past. Well, if we're practicing well, that is the case. If we're practicing well, we're not creating any future. We're simply staying, can I say, present. We're staying here. We're here and now, and we're experiencing then past karmas arising. And if we're able to maintain our equanimity and not relate to them with the sprinkling of desire or aversion, then we can see the past karmas arising and passing away, arising and passing. And we are freeing up the past. We're putting the past to rest. We're enabling any unfinished business to complete itself. So this is the practice. The practice is dealing with the past. Absolutely. No future. Absolutely. When we relate to our experience with desire and with aversion, we're creating the future. We're creating more of the same. So let's be very aware of this, and let's take great care not to create any more suffering for ourselves through desiring, through hating, through wanting, through aversion. Let's stay steady and be the Buddha. Be the Buddha, seeing the Dhamma. Thank you, Christopher. So Bhavani, welcome. Thank you for your question. And here it is. So Bhavani says, Namaste, Namaste. What is the difference between seeds and roots according to Buddhism, Ayya? Yeah, that's interesting. These similes are many. There are many, many similes that the Buddha's given us relating to nature. And so in this particular simile, the Buddha's actually telling us what I'm talking about when I talk about seeds here is consciousness, the rebirth consciousness, the consciousness that we come into this life with, and that will lead to further rebirth if it is continuing to manifest, multiply, if it has a momentum to it. This here is the seed. In many places, the Buddha speaks about roots. He speaks about the roots of our suffering, the roots of suffering being three, but really one. The roots of greed, of hatred, and of ignorance are the three. And the one is the ignorance, the not seeing, from which springs up desire and aversion, and then the whole host of experiences that we're having as a result of this, in a way, distorted view, which is ignorance. For some reason, what comes to my mind as well is that how the Buddha tells us to go sit at the root of a tree, sit on the ground, come to the ground, come to the earth, come to the reality of what is actually this situation here. Touch the ground. When the Buddha became liberated, he was sitting at the root of a tree, the foot of a tree, and he touched the earth. This speaks volumes, really. There's so much to consider here. So I would say, Bhavani, there are many similes from the Buddha. in which seeds and roots are described. And I would say the difference between seeds and roots is kind of, I would just come to the reality of nature, that you can see how a seed is the tiniest thing, the tiniest material, Dhamma, but it has within it the potential for growth, for multiplication, for huge amounts of creation to take place. The roots are the roots of beings, plants, trees that take nourishment from the earth to enable them to grow. The roots follow on from the seeds create the roots. That's really what comes to my mind. I hope that's a satisfactory response for you there. Do come back to me if not. Thank you, Bhavani. Sud, thank you, Sud, says, Dear Ayya, how does following Eightfold Path fit into this picture? With mindfulness of arising and passing away, how is Eightfold Path practice done? Thank you so much, Sud. That's a really helpful question. Let's bring in the Eightfold Path because it is the way of practice and it is all encompassing. So every aspect of our life is supported by the Eightfold Path, and we can consider the Eightfold Path in every aspect of life in order to practice for liberation. So first of all, yes, in the Eightfold Path, we have the sila, we have the virtue aspects, right speech, right action, right livelihood. So first of all, friends, we want to develop the goodness, the freedom from remorse that enables us to begin to have enough peace and enough kind of ground, steadiness of mind in order to be able to begin to wake up and observe the reality of our situation. This is essential. If we have a lot of cruelty and harm happening intentionally in our lives, then we're going to feel very agitated, we're going to be very disturbed, and there's no way we can see clearly to even begin to unpack the Dhamma. So we want to cultivate virtue, live a good life, be generous, be kind, be compassionate, avoid any kind of harm whatsoever, to then have the ability to peacefully contemplate. It's the beginning of peace for us. Virtue, these three aspects of the Eightfold Path, and then to develop the practice. Meditate, energy, apply energy for mindfulness and for samadhi, for stillness. So the meditation practice is then the way in which we begin to contemplate this reality and start to see, start to investigate the khandhas, start to really feel out this body. What is it to have a body? How is it to feel the feelings, to observe perception, rather than simply perceiving? We're knowing that perception is happening, rather than simply thinking and being caught up in our thoughts, to recognize thinking is happening with mindfulness, with awareness. Then we become the observer, the witness, and we're seeing the Dhamma, rather than being caught up in endless proliferation here. So the Eightfold Path, the virtue aspects, three aspects, the meditation, you could say, aspects, three aspects, and then the wisdom aspects of right understanding and right view. Again and again, we want to consider the Four Noble Truths. We want to consider the cause of suffering is desire. When I want and I don't want, I suffer. When I let go of wanting and not wanting, this opening happens. There's a freeing up. The seed is not germinating. There's a peaceful possibility of freedom here. And right intention, so important for our sila, for virtue, non-harming, non-cruelty, and renunciation, letting go, giving away, generosity, and also willingness to let go. It really does seem to me that letting go is the bottom line. Ajahn Chah taught this repeatedly. It's a simple but all-encompassing teaching. Just let go, friends. We just need to let go. Let go of what? Let go of absolutely everything. Let go of all that is experienced. Let go of desire and aversion. Just keep this sort of attitude of leaving it, letting it be. The attitude of allowing things to fade, recognizing that everything is arising in order to pass away. As our friend Christopher said, you know, there is no future. When we really see clearly, just let things pass, let it go, let it go. Don't create any more suffering. So, right intention, this aspect of renunciation is another way in which we can fully appreciate the Buddha's teaching on letting go and see how it connects with this teaching today. All the teachings are so beautifully intertwined and all pointing to Nibbana. Thank you so much for your question. So, because it's so helpful to relate all the teachings to the Eightfold Path, because this is our way, this is our path of practice. Much appreciation. Okay, we have a question here from Bhavani. Again, thank you, Bhavani. What is meant by fuel according to Buddhism? That's a really good question. It's quite a big question, actually. The Buddha said there are 4 kinds of fuel for us. We have the fuel for the body, which is food. We have the fuel for our mind, which is contact, which creates more feeling, more experience. We have the fuel of thinking, which creates more of the same. And we have the fuel that is the consciousness that has brought us here, that is the rebirth consciousness, the fundamental consciousness that has its own momentum through life. So these fuels are what enable us to continue to exist, in short. And we can investigate all of these nutriments and we can see how to work with them skillfully. For instance, with food, we don't want to starve. It's not wise to simply stop eating. That wouldn't be at all helpful for liberation. But we do want to be careful how we relate to this nutriment and just eat the right amount. Eat in moderation, as much as we can, eat what is healthy for the body. With contact, we want to not overwhelm ourselves or bombard ourselves with contact, with seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. We want to be conscious that this is a nutriment, this is a fuel, and we don't want to overdo. We don't want to overconsume. Actually, it's really wise to reduce the contact so that we have more space to see what's actually happening, to perceive our situation, to recognize and contemplate the khandhas, the 5 khandhas, to recognize and contemplate the senses, and so forth. To contemplate in the many ways that we've been given by the Buddha. So the fuel of thinking, again, we want to not keep pouring more fuel onto ourselves. We want to douse the flames, the heat of too much experience, and let go of thinking, let go of expanding our consciousness again and again through desire, sprinkling the water of desire or aversion. We actually want to allow these aspects of our experience to rest. to come to a place of peace, trusting in the Buddha's teachings, understanding that there is a way to experience complete peace and well-being, which is not to be found within this realm of mind and body, and to trust that, to be willing to let go of the nutriments to the extent that we can, and to let go of the compulsion to get more of this or less of that, desire and aversion as much as we can, to begin to come to a place of stillness, of equanimity, and in this way we can trust and actually experience that this is a good direction to be moving in. This is the way forward. This is the way. This is the way to some refuge. This is the way to some safety. This is the way to peace. And as we continue to practice letting go, then we really develop a lot of confidence in this path and a real sense that, yeah, this is the way to proceed. And then it's unstoppable, this process of letting go and subsiding, the seed no longer germinating, resting, abiding peacefully for as long as it has to, and letting go when the time comes for it to cease entirely. Thank you very much, Bhavani. I hope that's a helpful answer. Okay, and hi Karuna, welcome. Welcome to Ronald and Scott also. I have now a question from Rebecca. Just a few minutes to go, so I'll have to be quite brief. Let's see how I do that. When I see the urgency to practice, my mind often becomes agitated with fear and aversion. How can I get from there to wise observation when the aversion is very strong? Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, it's a really fine balance. It's a real balancing act, how to cultivate the practice kindly and in a way that enables us to sustain the practice. And so when you experience urgency and then there's a reaction to that, which is fearful and agitated, what one could notice is that cultivating a sense of urgency then isn't maybe the most useful way to direct the mind. In this case, for this time, may be better to put that aside and allow for some relaxation, and no harm whatsoever in coming back to bringing up a sense of urgency if the energy's flagging, if there's a sense of kind of not so interested in the practice, but I kind of want to be, but I'm losing interest. That's a time to bring up a sense of urgency. But for now, perhaps to focus more on relaxing and making a good space for meditation, a suitable space, peaceful and comfortable, and allowing the mind to investigate feeling, investigate the body, rest in the body, and see what's happening there. And just opening to that. The body is very peaceful, the body is very true, it doesn't deceive us. Come to the breath. The breath is peaceful, the breath is a friend. Just to stop paying attention to the breath, let it be simple. Coming into the Kayanupasana, feeding out the body, feeding the breath. This is really a way to develop some peace and well-being in our hearts. And from this vantage point, this place, we can practice comfortably. The meditation practice is most sustainable when it's something we can, on some level, enjoy the peacefulness, enjoy the relaxation, and bring in investigation and sense of urgency when it's required, when there's a flagging of effort and energy. I hope that's helpful. How can I get from there to wise observation when the aversion is very strong? Yeah, I think I've answered that. It's really good that you're aware, that the aversion is very strong. So this is not helping. So let me find ways to ease that aversion, to let go of that sense of urgency for the time being, and to relax into the practice. So many ways for us to practice, friends, and it's so wise and skillful. And thank you, Rebecca, for this, because you're pointing to the wisdom that is guiding us, where we can gauge for ourselves how to modify, how to choose the right practice for the right time. And this is so valuable for us. So good wishes with that. Okay, I think that we've sort of run out of time. You're so skillful, all of you. You haven't asked any questions beyond the time. That's so lovely. Scott asked a question a good while ago. So I'm going to just answer this one and then we'll conclude. Thank you, Scott. With your specific causes and conditions, it may have been necessary to develop healthy emotional detachment. Can you help us to understand how you might have gone about this? Yeah. Healthy emotional detachment. I feel that there isn't really anything personal here. This is like a universal consideration. We all have different causes and conditions, but we all share the same predicament. We all are subject to aging, sickness, and death, and we all have to deal with a mind that is reacting to reality until it doesn't. So we all have to deal with aversion, we all have to deal with desire, and we have to learn how to observe, witness, be present for, and allow these defilements to arise and then pass away again and again until we come to the end of this struggle, friends. So for each one of us, we have the same issues, one could say. And to develop a healthy emotional detachment, for me, I hear you, and I feel that this is something valuable for us to have a degree of emotional stability, you could say, to have equanimity, perhaps in short. Equanimity is a natural result of practice. So it's something that we will find developing in our practice, and it's something very valuable, very helpful for us. The equanimity towards our own experience enables us to then have quite naturally equanimity towards the experiences of those around us and the experiences we hear about further afield in the world, say through the news. To develop equanimity is not something that can be done through thinking about it or through wanting it to happen. It's through practice. It's through suffering. It's through experiencing dukkha. It's through experiencing the predicament that we're in. And only then can we, in a way, find our even keel, find a way to chart our course through the stormy seas. So this is a valuable quality that will naturally arise for us. And one thing I just want to say to conclude is that it's not the same as detachment, really. I think the healthiest emotional relationship with the world is through equanimity, and it naturally comes about through our practice. It is not detachment. It is more like a very intimate awareness and engagement through consciousness. To be equanimous is to be very awake, to be very aware of all that goes on within us, and as a natural mirror reflecting. Also, that means all that goes on around and about us. To be very conscious, very awake, very aware, is to be very even-minded. The more we wake up to experience, the more we can appreciate this quality of peacefulness with whatever's happening, however crazy, however cruel, however shocking, however painful. The only healthy emotional response is equanimity, to be aware, be conscious, feel what's felt, feel the natural response to suffering, and make peace with it. And this is what we'll find ourselves doing through the practice. And it isn't to step away from, or to be detached, or to be indifferent to the world around us, the world within us. It's to be awake to the world around us, the world within us, and to have the understanding that peace is the only way. So thank you very much, friends, for your wonderful questions and comments. And I'll have to conclude here. Let's end again with 3 sadhus in gratitude for the Buddha Dhamma. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.